Oh. That's just going to be a thing.
Good morning, and welcome to Trinity Church of Austin. Minister here, and we've assembled a small number of staff to put together this experiment in live broadcasting, which we have not done before, and we appreciate your patience. This Sunday going forward, at least through the month of March, we're going to be doing this live broadcasting. We're taking the coronavirus news seriously, and we're going to close our doors to large gatherings for the foreseeable future. We'll reevaluate at the end of March to see what we do going forward, and we will let you know the specifics of that. So my advice to you, as what you're hearing everywhere, is to stay spread out If you need to quarantine. Wash your hands for at least 20 seconds using soap and water, the best thing, and connected with each other. A quote that I heard this week from someone that I really liked said this: sometimes watching over each other in love looks like staying away from each other. This is one of those times. So even though we're doing this remotely, we want you to know that we're going to continue to be very connected to you through prayer, through connection, through phone banks, through prayer banks, whatever we need to do. And so we are going to continue on as a community. And so we want you to know that at Trinity, no matter who you are, who you love, what you believe, or what you don't believe, you are welcome here. And we are all in this together. Welcome to the celebration. And we're going to, we put together some questions and answers. Who's our administrator, is going to be asking me these questions that we prepared in advance, and we hope that they're helpful to you.
Good morning, everybody. So Sid, is everybody overreacting by shutting down these events and isolating themselves?
You know, my sense is maybe, but maybe not. We don't want to risk our members' lives.
So who exactly are we protecting by switching to these virtual worship services?
Everyone. Because social distancing is meant to slow the spread of the virus and help make sure that hospitals are not overwhelmed by the large numbers of severely ill people. So we hope to slow down the infection rate so that our healthcare system can cope with all this.
How do you think Trinity's doors are going to be closed for worship?
We don't know. I hope it's just a few weeks. I'd love to be back in full operation by Palm Sunday and Easter, but we simply don't know the answer. That's why we're going to reevaluate at the end of March and let everyone know.
So what are we going to do about Easter?
Well, we're exploring a variety of options for Easter. And one is postponement. Another option might be holding the service outdoors, like we used to do years ago, which would enable more social distancing.
Is the Trinity office going to be open during the week?
The staff will be working mostly from home as much as possible, and will be keeping regular hours. But the
Trinity know if my family needs help?
If you email, and I'll hold this up in a moment, email pastoralcare@trinitychurchofaustin.org or call my cell phone at 512-423-6887. That's a good way for us to stay in touch with each other. And I'm going to hold this up closer. Let me take this right up there, and you can see. I don't know if it's showing up backwards. I hope it's forward. Good. You're good there. Excellent. And we'll post that again a little later in the service so you can be reminded of it.
So how is Trinity going to deal with the loss of rental and donation income during this time?
That's a big concern. We hope to borrow some money to help cover operating costs, continue with staff salaries. We also hope the congregation will be able to provide extra support if they're able. We would greatly appreciate that, and to remember that to keep in mind the staff is continuing to work. Our regular childcare workers, even our hourly workers, we have promised to pay them at least for 3 hours each week during this time, even if they're not here, so that they don't have a sudden loss of income.
So how can members of the congregation stay connected?
We plan to set up a traditional phone tree. So look for an email if you're part of our update. And there will also be regular email and Facebook updates. And we're inviting you to share your own ideas as we office at trinitychurchofaustin.org and we hope to hear from you about your ideas.
So how can we donate to support Trinity?
If you want to donate to Trinity, you can go to www.trinitychurchofAustin.org/support to donate online or learn how to download the Give Plus app, which some of us have already done on our mobile devices, or text your donation amount to, and you'll see the number 512-967-02, all cell phone carriers. And I'm going to hold this up as well so you can see that. And again, all of these are available online through our website and on Facebook. Now to continue our celebration, we're going to provide an opportunity for meditation. In this time when we're not having an 11 o'clock service or 9 o'clock service, one of the things that we've been very blessed by at Trinity is having Tim lead us in some sort of meditation at the 9 o'clock service. And since we don't have, and so we're so happy that our music and arts director, Tim Brace, is going to lead us in this meditation.
Sit comfortably. If you need to move around a little bit, it's okay. Close your eyes. Take a deep in-breath and out. One more time. In and out. Now gradually start to relax. Start from the feet. Continue to breathe. Start from the feet. Relax your feet. Your calves. Around your knees. Your thighs. If there's any place specifically tight, focus on relaxing that direct place. Up your spine, relax. Your shoulders, your arms, your hands. Up the back of your neck to the top of your head. Relax your eyes. Relax your face, your mouth. Think to yourself, I am breathing in. Breathe out, I am breathing out. Breathe in, I am breathing in. Breathe out, I am breathing out. Breathe in, relax your body. Breathe out, relax your mind. Breathe in, relax your body. Breathe out, relax your mind. Breathe in, relax your body. Breathe out, relax your mind. Breathing in, my mind is calm. Breathing out, my heart is strong. My mind calm. Breathing out, my heart is strong. I breathe in. I breathe out. Now feel the energy in your spine, moving up your spine to your head, spirals up your spine, to the top of your head, behind your eyes. Relax your eyes. I breathe in. I breathe out. Breathing in, I relax my body. Breathing out, I relax my mind. My mind rests. One more breath in. Hold it. Breathe out. When you're ready, open your eyes.
Let us begin with our readings this morning from Matthew in the 22nd chapter. Then some Pharisees went and plotted to entrap Jesus in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with the truth, and show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us, then, what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" And they answered, "The emperor's." Then he said to them, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." And when they had heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away.
The second reading is from Marcus J. Borg and John Dominic Crossan. The last week, a day-by-day account of Jesus' last week in Jerusalem. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar? Should we pay them or not? It was a volatile question. Ever since the Jewish homeland had been added to the Roman Empire in 63 BCE, Rome had required a large annual tribute from the Jewish people. Rome did not collect tribute directly from its individual subjects. Rather, local authorities were responsible for its payment and collection. And in our passage, it is they who send the Pharisees and Herodians to Jesus. Roman taxation was onerous not only because it was economically burdensome, it also symbolized the Jewish homeland's lack of sovereignty. It underlined the oppression of the Jews by an alien lord, as the word tribute itself suggests. The spokesman of the authorities set the trap skillfully. Either answer would, if he were to answer yes, he risked discrediting himself with the crowd, who for economic and religious reasons resented Roman rule and taxation. Jesus' response was masterful. Jesus' strategy has led his questioners to disclose to the crowd they have a coin with Caesar's image on it. In this moment, they are discredited. Why? Now, in the Jewish homeland in the first century, there were two types of coins. One type, because of the Jewish prohibition on graven images, had no human or animal images. The second type, including Roman coinage, had images. Many Jews would not carry or use coins of the second type, so they are exposed of politics of collaboration.
During the month of Lent, we are in the midst of a series called Dare to Walk with the Rebel Jesus. And this week, we're focusing on the teaching, risking challenge. And this month is particularly focusing on the events of the last week of Jesus in Jerusalem. His march into Jerusalem and some of the events that occurred in the biblical texts. And so this week we're focusing on this very well-known passage of render to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. It's one of those that's misunderstood, and as Marcus Borg and John Dominic Crossan point out eloquently, we have often misunderstood that. And I think it's very poignant and relevant to some things that are happening in our own times. And so I invite you to walk with me for a few minutes as we explore this text and explore what it might mean for us today, and specifically today as we are in a bit of a frenzy and our anxiety is heightened with the coronavirus. One of the things we learn about Jesus is that last week was all about challenging empire. We've learned through scholars' texts and others in recent years that nothing that we see in the Gospels, particularly that last week, are done without any kind of intention specifically that we may have understood in the previous times. In other words, in our day, we have challenges too about empire. And so Jesus' instructions and his teachings and his actions in particular are helpful for us as guides. As we shared a couple of weeks ago, that when we talked about Jesus' march into Jerusalem, what's known as the Palm Sunday Parade, it was an act of protest. On the same day that Pontius Pilate would be riding in on a stallion from the west, Jesus chose a colt to ride in from the east. And so from the very moment of that action, he was already in trouble. And so it's no surprise that these other texts that show up during that last week are all references in some way to how Jesus was speaking truth to power against Rome. And no exception. We see that these Pharisees and Herodians are specifically trying to trap Jesus. Now, that wasn't an uncommon thing for Pharisees anyway. One of the techniques of Pharisees was to simply ask questions in such a way that even your best friend would be challenged to come up with a clear and clever answer. So Jesus was used to this kind of bantering. But as the text points out, this is not just any common Pharisee. These are Pharisees and Herodians, which means they're those in collaboration with Herod, that are working against Jesus and working against the common people and working on behalf of Rome. Now, lest we think that these are just people who are ruthless in their thinking and in their actions against Jesus, the people in Palestine, ancient Palestine, that were under absolute Roman rule. So even those Pharisees and Herodians that were collaborating with Rome were doing that under duress. And so I think it's important to point that out, lest we make this into an anti-Semitic text. But we see in this text this group of people trying to trap Jesus. Now, it makes an assumption. It assumes that they would have known that Jesus would have spoken out against taxes, against Rome. Otherwise, why would they even have asked them the question? One of the things that we learn through Roman history and the history of ancient Palestine, particularly through writers like Philo of Alexandria and Josephus, is that this taxation was volatile at the time. When Jesus would have been right around 15 years old, there was an outright rebellion against Rome in the area of Palestine over taxes. Rome used taxes as a way to manipulate the Jewish people. It wasn't just Pax Romana, peace through violence, that Rome ruled. But one of the violent ways that they ruled was through economics, through keeping the poor poor and making sure that those who were well connected stayed well connected. And so there were constant rebellions at the time against Rome over taxation. And this was one of those times. Multiple executions, crucifixions, beheadings, all through the decades leading up to Jesus' own death and even afterwards. In fact, one of the things that we around 3 years before the time of Jesus' own death. Pontius Pilate, under the cover of night, went through and at the temple of Atonia, which is just across the way from the Jewish temple, in plain sight, erected images of Emperor Tiberius. And in Judaism, the image of the emperor is so important to resist, because in Judaism, of course, you're to have no graven images. And so this was a terrible affront to the Jewish people. And there's very little record of Pilate ever backing down. And he didn't back down directly, but the insurgents of quick and violent in response to this act appeared. So all of that is an indicator, I believe, of just how important this image was, this message was of Jesus. Jesus knew that he was being trapped, and he answered the question in such a way that laid it out. If these people were carrying around an image of a coin of the emperor in plain sight, that's something most Jews, as Marcus Borg and John Dominic Crossan said, would not have done. They would not have carried around that particular coin. Those coins were specifically used for taxation and were printed in Lyon, Tiberius specifically, to be used for taxation. Why these Pharisees would have even had one of those coins is a question all into itself. So when they handed it to Jesus, they were trying to trap him. And since in Judaism, everything belongs to God, all belongs to God, even the question of what is God's and what is Caesar's was something that was not part of Judaism. Judaism would have known that you never replace God with Caesar. And so when Jesus questioned back, he didn't really answer their question and ask whose figure was on the coin. And when they said the emperor's image, he said, render to God what is God's and to Caesar what is Caesar's. What that meant essentially is you people already know that nothing truly belongs to Caesar. And so to say render to Caesar what is Caesar's was saying, I don't believe, and you should not believe also, that this coin or anything in all of creation belongs to Caesar. It all belongs to God. Why is this relevant today? Well, I think that there are some things about it that are particularly poignant for our time. One of those that we should say, just as a sort of cautionary note, is when we're trying to compare it to our own political situation, our own world situation, we need to remember that we live in a republic today and have elements of democracy that the ancient people of Israel did not have. They had absolutely no rights, no authority. Everything was controlled by Rome, and if Jews were collaborators, it was under manipulation of Rome. So the idea of transferring even this idea to today, and we need to be cautious about that, because we live in a different time where we have more rights than they had. But the underlying idea still applies. We live in a world where the political structures of society continue to uphold the very wealthy and to diminish the poor. I read an article just yesterday that said that one of the reasons the coronavirus has been able to be curtailed so significantly in the small country of Taiwan is because there is universal health care there, and no one is afraid to go to the doctor. And so tests, of course, were made available right away. And so the people there were able to freely go to the doctor and not fear being turned away. go to the hospital and know that they were going to be received and to be tested. That kind of principle of universal health care is one that goes directly against this idea of the very wealthy being connected and the poor not having any leverage. And so when Jesus says that everything belongs to God, I believe that that tells us today that everything in our world does belong to God, and we need to find a political structure, a spiritual life that directs us in that way. And so one of the ways we enter the last week of Jesus, one of the ways we walk with Jesus and dare to walk with Jesus on this difficult road is to recognize that the different because of the political times are still at play in our world. And when we see who's being tested, for instance, for the coronavirus and who's not, who has access to health care, who does not, we see the same kind of structure, the same kind of disparity in the world. And so to render to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's, and to say, look, even Caesar is submissive to God, that everything belongs to the divine, all of creation and every person. What would it be like in our own society, especially during this time of fear and anxiety, if we were all committed in a very radical way to walk with the radical Jesus, to walk with the rebel Jesus, and to has a place at the table. And that includes healthcare and access to healthcare and the financial resources that are required to keep people healthy. This is a strange time and a scary time. And I have anxiety just as you. I have relatives that are older and are more vulnerable. I have grandchildren, people in my life that I do not want to get sick. I want them to remain healthy. And I want to live in a society where I know and trust that everyone who wants access to the top resources will have that. We don't live in that kind of society right now. Just this morning, there were a group of Trinity folks that, in spite of the concerns of the coronavirus, took food items down to the work corner in Central Austin to feed the homeless. And I know that our Hope Food Pantry, while they're making some adjustments and not having clients come into the church to get particular food items, the food pantry has said, we're going to stay open and we're going to take those to the door so that those people living on the margins will at least have something. All of that is not enough, but it's important that we continue to find ways to work together so that everyone has access. Everyone has an opportunity to have great health care. So this passage is not about divvying up things in a separation of church and state, as it's often used. And the early church, unfortunately, as it became empire itself, reinterpreted this text to mean that. This is saying that everything belongs to God and to Caesar's. And so what that means for us as a country, what that means for us as a world, is that we take on the values of Jesus, the inclusive values that are willing to stand with people on the margins and be on the margins ourselves in order to make healthcare accessible to all, to make sure that everyone is included and no one is forgotten in any kind of crisis in spite of our own anxiety, and that we do what's necessary to walk with the rebel Jesus. Amen.
We want to continue with our tradition and of community prayer here at Trinity. We know that that's a very important aspect of our life together in your prayers, and as we did last week, and those will be read. And so we'll do that, and beginning now, I'll hold the number up to the screen. That's the donation number. This is the prayer number. Here we go. And so if you will take note of this number, and text in your prayers, and we'll read them out to the whole community as is our custom at Trinity. I have a prayer of thanksgiving for the 95th birthday for Mary Kay Johnson's grandfather. And so we have a prayer for the safe journey of Ananias Surratt back to his family in Durham, North Carolina. We have a happy birthday to Deb Campbell's mom from Jean Dalkey. Another thing that we want to do during this time, as our prayers are coming in, is also to have our offering time. And if you will, follow this link for your donations to Trinity. You can text them in, or you can download an app to do that. We encourage everyone to continue with their support of Trinity during this strange and distracting time that we are experiencing. We have a prayer sending prayers to help reduce the anxiety and fear that has been created by the coronavirus. We have a prayer for Margie, Kim's mom, in her new home in memory care in Kansas City. We note that it is Jean Dalkey's 92nd birthday today, and keep living her best life. We have a prayer of gratitude for the measures that Trinity is taking to protect its congregants, a prayer of comfort for those left feeling lonely and isolated. Not everyone is technologically literate and able to join gatherings such as these readily. We have a prayer for all those people with coronavirus. A prayer for all the people in long-term care settings who are at great risk if the virus reaches them. We pray for all who are in isolation, that they will have people who will check on them, and pray for all of the that have someone to check on. We have a prayer for all of the healthcare workers. And prayers for parents entertaining kids during their social isolation. Prayers for safe travels, that Andrew can visit Austin in May, and that there will not be travel bans at that time. We have prayers of thanksgiving, the life of Barbara Harris, the first female bishop in the Episcopal Church, and the first African American woman as well. Health and safety of all asylum seekers camped in crowded, primitive conditions at the border, and for helping congregations such as Team Brownsville that deal with the decreased number of volunteers. Prayers especially for the elderly and the vulnerable, and for those living for the elderly. A prayer of thanksgiving for the unexpected blessings, solidarity shown across communities, an opportunity to redefine and focus on family time. A prayer for Mr. Dowell, healing from a brain tumor. A prayer of gratitude that my mom in New Zealand can join me in church today. Prayer for the safety and well-being of all first responders. Prayer for our Trinity congregation and staff as we continue our strong bond through this challenge. A prayer for Paula having risk factors, and 2 people in their office. Also, discernment on my part, since not everyone at my office can work from home. A prayer for all those whose livelihoods are at risk due to the virus. Let us hold these prayers that have been expressed and all those that we cradle in the silence of our hearts in a time of silence now. Let us pray now. We come here to encounter the teachings of Jesus. Many wanted to destroy him for those teachings. And sometimes we too find that his words challenge us, calling us to more than we think we can be. Forgive us, O God. Let us be shaped into new people, made in the mold of justice, not in the stamp of Caesar's coin. You entered our story through Jesus. Now help us enter fully into the story of your kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Amen.
Just a few. We are still connected. Some of you may have seen the powerful YouTube from the village in northern Italy, where a group of people were quarantined and someone began to sing opera out the window. And all of this community, quarantined, came in together in one song. I feel like that when Jesus challenged Rome, he was saying, you don't define us. We sing one song together, and I'm willing to live and die for that. And I think during the coronavirus, we need to remember that even if we're isolated from each other, we are part of each other. And we sing a song of hope, a song of justice, a song of radical inclusiveness, a song of love together. I want you all to make sure that if there are places in Austin that you can get medical help without insurance. I'm going to hold this up right now so you can see that this is an organization that you can talk to, community care health centers. And I don't know if you can see that information, but please look it up online. And those are places that you can go to get help. And we want you to know that that is available for all, whether you have insurance or not. If you have symptoms that are consistent with what people are saying, call your doctor's office first so they can help you with containment measures. If there's some doubt, don't just show up at the emergency room. Make sure that those are available for the cases that where it's absolutely known. Also, Hope Food Pantry will continue to be open and distribute bags at the door on Thursdays and Fridays. Remember that soap and water are sufficient to kill the virus, so don't panic if you can't get hand sanitizer or bleach or even toilet paper. So some ideas of staying connected. Phone tree. You're going to hear more soon about a phone tree that we're going to put out so that we can all stay connected to that. Also, Facebook and Nextdoor groups online. You can donate to the Hope Food Pantry through Trinity's site. And again, if you have ideas to stay connected together, office at trinitychurchofaustin.org. One thing I also want to note is if you want good information about the coronavirus, don't trust the meme on Twitter or Facebook. Go to reputable news sites to get that information, because sometimes those memes can be a source of great misinformation. So a couple of things you want to hold up again, just so you remember. For pastoral care, you can reach us at pastoral care at Trinity Church of Austin. You can also reach me by my cell phone, text or call. And if I don't get it immediately, I will get back with you very quickly. Also, send your ideas to Trinity, like I just said. And for donation, you can continue to, trying to find all of our papers shuffling around. Thank you. Here's the continuing to support the ministries of Trinity. This is a way that you can do that, and we greatly appreciate it. I want to thank Gus Lott, who is not here today, but who worked hard to help this all be set up, for our youth director, Joe, who was here helping, for Tim and Mark and Christine and Lauren way down there at the piano, for coming in and putting together this worship service for you all today. Stay safe. May the power of God sustain us. And may the love of God keep us together forever. Amen.